Hi students, I am Richa Shukla, your educator from Study Room. Let us start your chapter 5. The name of your chapter is The 100 Dresses, and this is the first part. Alright, now let's get to know about your author. Eleanor Estes was an American children's author and a children's librarian. That means the author, Eleanor, she was an author as well as she was a children's librarian. Her book Ginger Pie, which also created illustrations for, won the Newbery Medal. That means she'd written a book known as Ginger Pie and she'd also created illustrations or cartoons or drawings for the same book. It won the Newbery Medal. 3 of her books were Newbery Honor winners and one was awarded the Louis Carroll Shelf Awards. Estes' books were based on her small life in a small town of Connecticut in the early 1900s. Alright, now let's start your chapter's theme. The story is basically about an innocent girl named Wanda Petronsky. So basically you have to remember the name here. It's a very unusual name, Wanda Petronsky, and her experience of bullying in school. So, sometimes people get, bullied in school, as you can see in the picture. So this is about a girl named Wanda and her experience of bullying. Peggy and Matty are two friends who regularly pick on Wanda. So who are the people who actually bully Wanda? Peggy and Maddie, alright? Asking her how many dresses she has, to which Wanda, who is poor, always replies 100 dresses. So Wanda is not very rich. She is not very well off. She does not have a lot of clothes. So Peggy and Maddie always keep asking her that how many clothes do you have, And to that question, Wanda always replies 100 dresses. Wanda is bullied time and again by the girls, though the girls don't see it that way until one day she stops showing up to school. So the point is, at times when you're actually bullying on somebody, you don't sort of realize that, oh, I'm doing this, or you don't seem to feel you're doing it in a joke, but you don't understand how hurt the other person is. So it's always very important to be, sort of careful and sort of thoughtful about other people. So, Wanda, similarly, the girls or people who get bullied by Maggie and Patty. So Wanda, they don't seem to realize it. But actually, when do they realize it? When Wanda stops coming to school. It is only when Wanda's artistic talent becomes known that the children start seeing Wanda with awe and admiration. So when do people start admiring or when do people start liking Amanda? Only when she, sort of tells or showcases her artistic talent. Today, Monday. Wanda Petronsky was not in her seat. But nobody, not even Peggy and Madeline, the girls who started all the fun, noticed her absence. So basically, the point was, what happened was that, it was a Monday and Wanda was not in her usual seat that she occupied, okay? But nobody, Wanda was not very popular, very famous, so people didn't seem to realize that she was absent. Usually, Wanda sat in the next seat next to the last seat in the room 13. So, which was that last room? It was the room 13. And Wanda usually used to sort of, sit on the seat next to the last seat in the last row. She sat in the corner where the rough boys who did not make good marks sat, the corner of the room, which was the most scuffling of feet, most roars and laughter when anything funny was said, and most mud and dirt on the floor. So where did she used to sit? You have to, sort of describe her seat. So she usually used to sit near the corner where rough boys or the boys of the class used to sit, and people who used to sit on those seats, they did not get good marks. That corner of the room was always very noisy. You could hear a lot of noises, people laughing loudly whenever anything funny was said, and there was a lot of mud and dirt on the floor. Wanda did not sit there because she was rough and noisy. On the contrary, she was very quiet and rarely said anything. So the point was, unlike the people who actually used to sit in that corner, Wanda was not at all, rough and noisy. On the contrary, she was very, very quiet and she rarely said anything. And nobody had ever heard her laugh out loud. And she also, she was so reserved, she was so shy that she couldn't even, laugh out loud. Sometimes she twisted her mouth into a crooked sort of smile, but that was it. So she was so shy and reserved because she was bullied so much that she couldn't even smile properly. At the max, she used to let out a small crooked smile, but that was it. She never used to laugh out loud. Nobody knew exactly why Wanda sat in that seat, unless it was because she came all the way from Boggins Heights and a field were usually caked with dry mud. So the point was nobody actually cared to know a lot about Wanda, so nobody gave or wanted to know that why did Wanda actually go and sit in that corner. People used to think that maybe, she comes from a particular locality which was Boggins Heights. And, so Boggins Heights was a little far away and it was not that good of a locality. And so she had a lot of mud on her feet. So maybe that's why she used to sit in that corner. But nobody really thought much about Wanda Pentrotsky once she sat in the corner of the room. But once, Wanda was settled in the class, nobody really paid a lot of attention to her. The one time they thought about Wanda was outside of school hours at noon time when they were coming back to school or in the morning early before school began. So the point is, the only time, Wanda was sort of, thought about or Wanda was paid attention to was usually after the school hours or before the school hours. Usually, at the noon time when they were coming back to the school or early morning, before the school used to begin. When groups of 2 or 3 or even more would be talking and laughing on their way to the schoolyard. So usually, at these times, people in 2 or 3 groups used to go to the schoolyard laughing and talking. Then sometimes they waited for Wanda to have fun with her. And sometimes what they would do is they would wait for Wanda to come to make fun of her, to laugh at her, to crack jokes at her. The next day, Tuesday, Wanda was not again in school either, and nobody noticed her again. So Wanda didn't come on Monday, and then again, Wanda did not come on Tuesday as well, and nobody sort of noticed her absence. But on Wednesday, Peggy and Maddie, who sat down front with other children who got good marks and who didn't track in a whole lot of mud, did notice that Wanda wasn't there. So now if you remember in the beginning, that in the theme of this chapter, it was told that Peggy and Maddie used to sort of bully Wanda. So, on the third day when Wanda did not turn up to school, Maggie and Peggy, they sort of noticed it, that, oh, Wanda isn't here and everything. Now, what kind of children were Peggy and Maddie? Peggy and Maddie always got good marks. They used to sit down in the front row and they did not get dirty or did not have mud in their feet. Peggy was the most popular girl in school. She was pretty, she had many pretty clothes and her hair was curly. Maddie was her closest friend. So now these two people, Peggy and Maddie were best friends, alright? So Peggy was actually very, very beautiful and she had a lot of pretty clothes as well and her hair were curly, alright? So you know what curly hair are, right? Like this. So she was very pretty. I'm just drawing Maddie for you. Sorry, I'm just drawing Peggy for you. So this was how Peggy looked. So Peggy had curly hair, she was very pretty, she was very popular, she had very beautiful dresses as well. And who was her closest friend? Maddie. So Maddie and Peggy were friends. The reason Peggy and Maddie noticed Wanda's absence was because Wanda had made them late to school. They had waited and waited for Wanda to have some fun with her and she just hadn't come. They often waited for Wanda Petronsky to have fun with her. So the point was, how did, Peggy and Maddie sort of notice that Wanda was not coming? Because before coming to school in the early morning hours before the school began, they used to stop and bully Wanda and have fun with her and, sort of crack jokes on her. But unfortunately, what had happened was they waited and waited and Wanda hadn't turned up. So they often, used to do this. They often used to wait up and make fun of her before school. Now let's look at the key terms. Scuffling of feet, noisy, dragging movements of feet on the ground. Now let's see where in the classroom does Wanda sit and why. Wanda usually sits at the back or the last or in the seat next to the last seat in the last row. She usually sits in that corner because she is very quiet, shy and reserved and she does not have a lot of friends. So that is why she cannot, gel well with the other students and chooses to sit down on the end of the class. Where does Wanda live? What kind of place do you think it is? So Wanda usually, if you remember the story, she lives in Bergen Heights, and it is not a very good locality. It is not a very rich or a posh locality. It is a normal locality which has a lot of dirt in it, because if you remember, Manda always used to come to school with dirt and mud on her feet. Why and when do Peggy and Maddie notice Wanda's absence? So Peggy and Maddie usually make a lot of fun of Wanda and bully her. So they usually, on the third day, they waited a lot for Wanda to come before school so that they could make fun of her. But Wanda did not turn up and they got late for school. That is when Wanda's absence was actually noted by Peggy and Maddie both. What do you think to have fun with her means? So to have fun with her basically means to make fun of somebody. So to make fun of Wanda, to sort of bully her, to make jokes on her. Let's move ahead. Wanda Petronsky. Most of the children in the room 13 did not have names like that. So basically in the class, not a lot of children had very unique names. Wanda Petronsky was a very, very unique name. They had easy names to say like Thomas, Smith or Allen. There was one boy named Willie Bounce, and people thought that that was funny. But it was not funny in the same way that Petronsky was. So basically, like, not a lot of people had very different names. Everybody had common names like Thomas, Smith or Allen. One of the boys were actually named Willie Bounce, and people thought it was funny. But the point was, it wasn't as similarly funny as people used to make fun of Wanda Petronsky's name, right? Wanda didn't have friends. She came to school alone and went alone. She always wore a faded blue dress that didn't hang right. It was clean, but it looked as though it had never been ironed properly. She didn't have any friends, but a lot of girls talked to her. So let's see. This is basically a small description of Amanda. She did not have a lot of friends. She came to school alone and went home alone. She always wore a faded blue dress. The faded blue dress was always very clean, but it looked like it hadn't been ironed properly. She did not have a lot of friends, but a lot of people talked to her. Now why? Let's see. Sometimes they surrounded her in the schoolyard as she stood watching the little girls play hopscotch on the worn ground. So what people used to do when Wanda used to, sort of watch other people playing, they used to surround her and watch her. Wanda, Peggy would say in the most courteous manner as though she was talking to Miss Mason. Wanda, she'd say, giving her friends a nudge. Tell us, how many dresses do you have hanging up in your closet? So basically, they used to make fun of her dresses, her dressing style, and they used to make fun of how Wanda was not as well off as them. So Peggy, what she used to say, she used to talk in a very curt manner, sort of almost mocking Wanda. She used to ask her, how many dresses do you have and everything? How many dresses do you have in your closet? Closet means your cupboard, as you can see in the picture. 100, Wanda would say. So, Wanda used to feel very bad, but, she also sort of wanted to play along. So she also used to say, 100, I have 100 dresses. 100, exclaimed all the little girls incredulously. And the little ones would stop playing hopscotch and listen. Yeah, 100 all lined up. Then her lips drew together in silence. So, everybody used to stop and watch and see whatever is happening between Peggy and Wanda. They sort of, because everybody wanted to watch the drama. So she used to say, yes, I have 100 dresses and that too all lined up. What are they like? All sick, I bet, Peggy said. Then Peggy again used to turn to, oh, you have silk dresses, no? Yes, all silk, all colors, velvet too. Yes, velvet too, 100 dresses. So she used to keep mocking, and Wanda sort of used to keep taking the mocks and start turning it into a conversation. So she used to ask, oh, you have silk? Yes, I have silken dresses. Oh, in all colors? She used to say, yes, in all colors. In velvet also? Yeah, in velvet also. 100 dresses, Wanda would repeat stolidly. That means she wouldn't, change her point. All lined up in my closet. Then they'd let her go. And before she'd gone very far, they couldn't help bursting into shrieks and peals of laughter. Then they used to make fun like, oh my god, look how she's lying and everything, Then Wanda used to walk away, but they used to laugh very, very hard so that, laugh hard enough so that Wanda could hear. 100 dresses. So they used to taunt her that as if she has 100 dresses, okay? She's so poor, she only has one dress. Obviously, the only dress Wanda had was the blue one she wore every day. So why did she say she have 100? What a story. So, they used to make fun of her that, she only has a blue dress that she wears every day. God knows why is she lying, such a liar and everything, okay? How many shoes you say you had? Then they used to start taunting her for shoes. 60 pairs, then Amanda used to say 60 pairs all lined up in my closet. Cries of exaggerated politeness greeted this. All alike, oh no, every pair is different. All colors are lined up. So similarly, they used to ask, oh, you have different colors of shoes. She used to say, yes, different colors of shoes and all lined up. Peggy, who had thought up this game, and Maddie, her inseparable friends, were always the last to leave. So both Peggy and Maddie used to team up and bully Wanda. Finally, Wanda would move up to the street, her eyes dull and her mouth closed, hitching her left shoulder every now and then in a very funny way she had, finishing to the walk to school alone. Now, Wanda used to be very, very sad. It used to hurt her a lot, but she couldn't say it because, it would make no sense because she has no friends to talk to. So her eyes became dull and, her mouth sort of closed, like she couldn't even laugh. And then she, sort of walked to school like this, hitching one of her left shoulders above, and she went alone to the school. Peggy was not really cruel. She protected small children from bullies and she cried for hours if she saw an animal mistreated. So, Peggy was actually not a very cruel girl. She did not like other people being bullied or anything. And, she sort of was so sensitive that she used to cry for hours if she saw an animal being mistreated. So, if anybody said to her, do you think it's cruel that the way to see Wanda? So, so when everybody used to ask her that, don't you think it's cruel the way you behave with Wanda? She would have been very surprised. Cruel? Why did the girl she say she had 100 dresses? So the point was, Peggy used to say that, I'm not being cruel or anything. Why does Wanda have to lie that she has 100 dresses? Anybody could tell that that's a lie. Why did she want to lie? And she wasn't just an ordinary person. Else, why did she have a name like that? Anyway, they never made her cry. So the point was, Peggy used to say that, she lies to us. Like, everybody knows she has only one dress and everything, So why does she keep lying to us that she has 100 dresses? And she used to say, look at her name, Wanda. It's not a common person's name. Like, why is her name like that? Anyway, they never made her cry. So Peggy always used to say that, as long as we are not making her cry, it's not a big issue. As for Maddie, this business of asking Wanda every day how many dresses and how many hats and how many this and that she has was bothering her. So the point was, actually Maddie was not a bad girl herself. So Maddie was not liking Peggy's behavior of every day, sort of mistreating Wanda by asking her how many clothes or dresses or hats or whatever she had. Maddie was poor herself. She usually wore somebody's hand-me-down clothes. Thank goodness she didn't live on Bogan Heights or have a funny name. So, Maddie herself, she was not very well off. She was very poor. And the point was, she used to wear clothes that other people used to give her. Hand-me-downs are that time clothes that other people sort of donate. Sometimes, Maddie just used to think to herself that, thank God I don't live in Bogan Heights or I don't have a funny name like Wanda. Otherwise, Peggy would have made fun of Maddie also. Sometimes, when Peggy was asking Wanda those questions in that mocking, polite tone, Maddie felt embarrassed and studied the marbles in the palm of her hand, rolling them around and saying nothing. Not that she felt sorry for Wanda exactly. So the point was, sometimes when Peggy was sort of asking Wanda, those questions and, in the mocking polite voice, what Maddie used to do, Maddie did not like it at all, as I told you already. So she used to sort of, avoid the whole conversation happening there, and she used to play with the marbles. But the point was, she was also not actually stopping Peggy from saying all that. If she would have actually felt bad, then she would have stopped Peggy from saying that. She would have never paid any attention to Wanda, but if Peggy hadn't invited the dresses game. But suppose Peggy and all the others started on her next. She wasn't as poor as Wanda, but perhaps she was poor. So, it always used to trouble Maddie that, Probably they would have never even noticed Vanda or, talked to her unless and until Peggy would have never invented the dresses game. But then it also scared her that, it wasn't like Maddie was rich or something, okay? Maddie was as poor as Vanda, if not more, not any less. So she felt like after Vanda, the next person Peggy would trouble would be Maddie. Of course, she would have more sense to say that she had 100 dresses. Still, she would not like them for to begin on her. She wished Peggy would stop teasing Vanda Petronsky. So, somewhere or the other, Maddie knew that, she would have a little bit of more senses in her on how to tackle if people started teasing her. But she wished that people would sort of stop teasing, and Peggy especially would stop teasing Vanda Petronsky. Now let's look at some proper word meanings. Didn't hang out, didn't fit properly. Hopscotch, it basically refers to a game in which children hop on and over squares marked on the ground. Alright, it's been shown in the figure. Nudge is basically a gentle push, incredulously showing unwillingness to believe. Stoically, not showing any feeling, bullies those who use their strength of power to frighten off weaker people. Hand-me-down clothes, old clothes handed down by someone else. Mocking refers to here false meant to make fun of. Embarrassed refers to ashamed. In what way was Vanda different from the other children? So Vanda was different from the other children because she was very shy, she was reserved, she did not have a lot of clothes. And not only that, she came from a very poor household and she couldn't mingle and talk a lot like the other people. Did Vanda have 100 dresses? Why do you think she said this? So, Vanda was always picked up on by Maddie and Peggy and their other girls in her class or in her form. They always used to trouble her and keep asking her how many dresses she had because they knew that Vanda was very, very poor and they wanted to bully her. That is why, Vanda sort of kept saying that she has 100 dresses in order to avoid being bullied or in order to avoid those questions. Why is Maddie embarrassed by the questions Peggy asked Vanda? Is she also like Vanda or is she different? So Maddie, if you all remember, was very, very concerned and very, very embarrassed by all the questions that Peggy used to ask Vanda because she herself, Maddie was not very well off. She was poor. She used to wear hand-me-down clothes. So it sort of troubled her that what if next after, teasing Vanda, Peggy starts teasing Maddie. So she was very, very concerned. In a way, she's also like Vanda. If she's not poorer than Vanda, she's not also richer. Alright. Let's move ahead. Today, even though they had been late to school, Maddie was glad that she'd not made fun of Vanda. She worked her arithmetic problems absent-mindedly. So, today Vanda hadn't come to school, but they were waiting upon, Peggy and Maddie both, they were waiting for Vanda so that they could bully her. But somewhere or the other, because Vanda hadn't turned up, Maddie was very happy that, they didn't make fun of Vanda. Then she started working on arithmetic problems. Arithmetic means maths. Maths problems absent-mindedly. 8 times 8. Let's see. She wished she had the nerve to write down Peggy a note because she knew she could never have the courage to speak it out to Peggy. Hey Peg, let's stop asking Vanda how many dresses she has. So, somewhere or the other, her mind was still stuck on the fact that they should stop teasing Vanda now. So, she felt like she could never really confront Peggy and ask her face to face that, let's stop teasing Vanda on how many dresses she has or not. Because she somewhere or the other knew that, they wouldn't have the courage to sort of, she wouldn't have the courage to speak out to Peggy because Peggy was a little bully. When she finished her arithmetic problem, she did start a note to Peggy. So what she thought was she'd write a note to Peggy, telling her to not tease Vanda. Suddenly, she paused and shuddered. She pictured herself in the schoolyard, a new target for Peggy and the girls. So she started writing the note, but somewhere or the other, she just suddenly became very scared. She was like, what if, they ignore my note and everything and start teasing me instead of Vanda, Peggy and her other girls. Peggy might ask her where she got the dress she had on, and Maddie would have to say that it was one of Peggy's old ones that Maddie's mother tried to disguise the new twins on so that nobody in room 13 would recognize it. So basically, as you all remember, Maddie used to wear, hand-me-down clothes. So, she was worried that if Peggy asks her, like, what dress are you wearing, she'd have to tell, or, she'll be exposed that she was actually wearing a hand-me-down dress of Maddie that of Peggy that actually Maddie's mother had, did a little changes on so that nobody in the class or room 13 would recognize it. If only Peggy would decide on her own to stop having fun with Wanda. Oh well, Maddie ran her hand through her short blonde hair as to push the uncomfortable thoughts away. What difference did it make? Slowly, Maddie tore into bits the note she had started. She was Peggy's best friend and Peggy was the best liked girl in the whole room. So the point was, somewhere or the other, Maddie wanted Peggy to stop teasing Wanda on her own. She wanted to her to stop, but then she also thought that Peggy is somewhere the most likable girl in the whole room, and she was Peggy's best friend. So the point was she did not also want to lose that friendship, because with that friendship came a lot of respect and love of other people. So yeah, Peggy couldn't possibly do anything that was really wrong, she thought. So now, Maddie thought to herself that Peggy won't actually do anything that was really very wrong. As for Wanda, she was just some girl who lived up on Boggin Heights and stood alone in the schoolyard. She scarcely ever said anything to somebody. The only time she talked was in the schoolyard about 100 dresses. Now, she started talking, sort of seeing how valuable both of the girls were. She, Maddie thought that, Peggy is much more important and valuable to me. She's my best friend, and, in the end, Peggy won't do anything wrong. And as for Wanda, Wanda was just, some anonymous girl who used to come to school. She lived in Boggin Heights. She didn't even speak or say anything to anybody. And, like, the only time she opened her mouth was to answer them about her 100 dresses. Maddie remembered her telling about one of the dresses, pale blue with colored trimmings, and she remembered another that was brilliant jungle green with a red sash. It looked like a Christmas tree in that. The girls had pretended in admiration. So once, sort of Wanda was telling about what all dresses she had, and so Maddie remembered Wanda telling that she has one blue dress, a pale blue dress, and it has colored trimmings on it. And another dress that she has is a brilliant jungle green color with red sash. So the other girls mockingly, or in a fun or taunting way, had said that you would look like a Christmas tree in that. Thinking about Wanda and her 100 dresses all lined up in the closet, Maggie began to wonder who was going to win the drawing and coloring test. For this, the girls consisted of designing dresses, and for boys, designing motorboats. Probably Peggy would win the girls' medals. So, now Maddie, she was thinking a lot about all of the dresses. Then she suddenly remembered that they had a drawing and coloring contest, Girls, what they had to do, they had to design dresses in that contest, and boys had to design motorboats. So, then Maddie started thinking that who would actually win it. She thought that Peggy would probably win this coloring competition. Peggy drew better than anyone else in the room. At least that's what everybody thought. She could copy a picture in a magazine or some film star's head so that you could almost tell who it was. Oh, Maggie was sure Peggy would win. Well, tomorrow the teacher was going to announce the winners, then they'd know. So, Peggy was really, really very good in drawing. She could actually sketch people. She could copy a picture in a magazine. And, Peggy was so good that Maddie was very, very sure that, it was Peggy only who would win. And, the results were to be declared tomorrow or a day after. And then, Maddie thought that they would get to know who won the competition. The next day, it was drizzling. Maddie and Peggy hurried to school under Peggy's umbrella. So the next day it was raining. So Maddie and Peggy both, sort of went to school under Peggy's umbrella. Naturally, on a day like this, they didn't wait for Wanda Petronsky on the corner of Oliver Street. The street far, far away under the railroad tracks and up the hill led to Boggin Heights. So basically, since it was raining, they did not wait for Wanda Petronsky on the corner of Oliver Street. Now, this Oliver Street had led to another street That led to the railroad tracks, and that finally led to Berkin Heights. Anyway, they weren't taking any chances on being late to school because today was important. Why was today important? Why didn't Peggy and Maddie want to go to school late? Because today's results of the drawing competition were being declared. Do you think Miss Mason will announce the winners today? Asked Peggy. Oh, I hope so the minute we get in, said Maddie. Of course you'll win, Peg. Hope so, Peggy said eagerly. So, Maddie was sort of also cheering on her friend. So she said, obviously, as soon as we get into class, she'll declare the results and you will win, Peggy. So Peggy also, sort of agreed with Maddie and she was hoping to win.